and thank you Radio Centre for having me. Hello, I'm Simon Devonshire. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm an investor, non-exec director and chair. It's a real privilege to be here and to share with you my thoughts about radio. I wrote what I'm going to share with you blind to the experts that you heard, and I hope that that's going to really come together for you as I share with you the perspective of radio from the perspective of an entrepreneur. So I now work across a portfolio of remarkable businesses, both large and small. I've enjoyed a fantastic and unique career, which frankly began in a shop. When growing up, my brother, sister and I spent a lot of time in our parents' shop. My mum and dad owned and ran a florist for more than 30 years, and it was a really vibrant family business, which grew really very well and flourished in the 70s and 80s. And that was really where I learned about business, how to win customers, how to keep them, how to manage your stock, your supply chain management, your cash flow. It's where I got my business grounding, which served me well in my first career. I worked for over 13 years in advertising and marketing agencies before moving into general management for corporates. Not only did I grow up listening to radio stations like Capital Radio and then Jazz FM, but it was in those agencies that I got the chance to co-write, produce and broadcast radio adverts for brands like Heinz, for Fina petrol stations back in the day and the post office. Big brands, household name brands that made my parents' business look especially tiny. We all played a part in my parents' business. Even my granddad, who drove the van and did all the deliveries. Now, unfortunately, my granddad's driving was so bad and his antics so notorious that my dad refused to have the van sign written with the business name on it because he didn't want anyone to know where the van came from. But despite the lack of promotion, the business was a great success and it flourished. And these days, business owners cannot afford to be so coy. The good news is it's especially easy to create and register a company in the UK. That's why the whole startup ecosystem is so vibrant, with more and more exciting new ventures being created every year. It's also easy to get your business going. Not only can you register a company in half an hour, but by the end of the day, we could also have its website live and up and running. And I'm not exaggerating. Now that it's so easy to get a business started, what that's really highlighting is the big challenge, and that big challenge is growing the business. Starting up is easy, it's the scaling up that's the tricky bit. And you might be thinking, well, that's okay because I don't really want to grow my business for high growth. I just want a little side hustle. That's what interests me, which is fine. I'm not advocating that everybody has to become a famous a multi-billionaire entrepreneur. But the awkward truth is that, in my experience, every business needs an ambition to grow. Yeah, even if your intent is quite modest, every business now needs to adopt an entrepreneurial mindset if they want to survive. So waiting for customers to find you rarely works. And the consequences of not winning businesses can be very serious indeed, both in terms of financial and mental health for both the business and for you, its founder. Even if you don't want to create the next Microsoft, Google, Amazon, you still need to be actively pursuing the generation of new business, which is easier said than done. So I've had the privilege of working with some amazing entrepreneurs. I've worked really hard to try and unpick what works and what doesn't. I've distilled the repeat behaviors common to successful entrepreneurs. And I've also identified the common obstacles that make scaling up just so very difficult. And there are millions of reasons why growing a business is hard, but when I distill it down, typically those obstacles can be categorized into one of three categories: access to funding, access to talent, and access to customers. Now, what's interesting about that is the first complaint I normally hear is all about access to finance, the sheer frustration of not securing investment to get your business going. And it can be very difficult to raise money, depending on what business you're in. Frankly, I could talk about that for a whole nother slot. But what's interesting is when those founders do get the finance they're looking for, their next most common complaint is, okay, so I've got the money, but how do I hire the talent that I need? It's access to talent is their frustration. And from my point of view, there are lots of ways of solving that problem as well. They're both legitimate challenges. But the whole point is not to just testify to the legitimacy of those challenges or sympathise with those owners. The whole point is I think they're wrestling with the wrong problem. My point is that it's access to customers that should be the priority. When entrepreneurs demonstrate and validate that people are prepared to buy their products and service, it's highly likely they'll get to raise both the investment they're looking for and to be able to hire. People want to support and work with businesses that are thriving, which may sound really obvious, but the insight is contrary to that narrative. And I often hear the narrative that I often hear in the ecosystem. So how do you overcome the hardest challenge of all, which is access to customers? Well, for me, the thing that I see working now, particularly in the digital era, is building communities. People rarely buy things these days without having some kind of rapport with the person selling them and or a conversation about the purchase. People like engaging with other people of a like mind and shared interests. People want to access and benefit from your expert knowledge. So my recommendation is use social media effectively and have conversations with people that are already talking about what your business does. Now, the example I've got is one of a nail bar. It's some research I did some years ago. Looking at social media, there is no end of conversation about people who are thinking about having nails done, on their way to having their nails done, having their nails done, and look, they've had their nails done. And yet, interestingly, a lot of the small businesses who provide that service are not involved in that narrative at all. So once you've established your community, you have to think about ways of attracting new people to join in the conversation and to become aware of your brand. And that's where radio can add huge value, especially locally. The UK is still a highly active radio listening nation. In fact, you heard earlier, more than 36 million adults tune in every week. And if you're wondering what to broadcast, there are two things that I think are really important. Firstly, showcase customers that love what you do. Positive testimonials are hugely effective. And talk about innovation, the new products and services that you're offering, whether that's something as simple as now you can book online or through to a new service that customers are raving about. In summary, if you have an idea or passion for a business, stop thinking about it and get it started. Once you've got your business started, don't wait for everything to be in place before you start promoting it. Get selling immediately. Build a community of people who are interested in what it is that you do and fuel that community via social media regularly. Put links to all that great content on your website, including testimonials from customers who love what you do, and then use mechanisms like radio to attract more people. Two final observations. Firstly, the pandemic has shown that businesses that operate online are able to continue trading no matter what. Online businesses are also able to operate without being limited to one geographic area. And if you want evidence of that, my favourite example is Joe Wicks, the body coach. Radio represents, for online businesses, the opportunity of raising awareness to new customers, both locally and beyond. Secondly, it's interesting hearing about mood. This is a personal reflection. Amongst my friends and my family, listening is the new thing. Since the pandemic, we've all become screen fatigued. We're all working from home more. We want sounds that lighten our mood and audio content to fuel our thoughts. In a world obsessed with eyeballs, perhaps, the ears have it.